Welcome, students, to Lesson 36 of the Changing Economic World topic. In this lesson, we're going to find out how we can solve inequality in the UK. A significant regional difference in the UK, the North-South divide, has continued to grow in the last 50 years. Today I'm going to show you how we can solve it, which would mean improving the lives of many millions of people in the north of the UK. Please take a minute to write the date, title and learning objective and have a pen and paper ready to learn. What you've learned before, please write 1 to 10, answer the questions from memory, and then mark your answers. Game time. Number 1. What was the largest sector in the north of the UK prior to deindustrialisation? It was the secondary sector. Number 2. How many people are employed in the UK's ports? About 120,000 people. 3. What is the name of the regional difference in the UK? It's the North-South divide. 4. What is the money the government collects from people and businesses? Taxes. 5. What is the name of the UK's upgraded roads? Smart motorways. 6. What sector in the UK creates about 3 billion of revenue annually? The research sector. 7. What islands in the UK have experienced population decline? The Outer Hebrides. 8. What continent has the highest percent of LICs? Africa. 9. In stage 3 of the DTM, the birth rate falls due to increased access to contraception, which can prevent pregnancy. 10. What is the name of the group of countries that export the most oil? It's called OPEC, the Organisation of Petroleum Exporting Countries. Please give yourselves a mark out of 10. If you got 8 or above, excellent. As ever, write any questions that you got wrong, write their answers, and then test yourselves on these questions repeatedly. Fantastic. To introduce the idea of how we can solve the North-South divide, I'm going to show you a picture that you've seen before. And I want you to answer the questions about this picture so that your mind is ready to think about solutions to a problem. So here's the picture. You've seen it before about this Liverpool 2 project. Here are the questions. Go for it. So number 1, what is Liverpool 2? You should have written that Liverpool 2 is a project to double the capacity of Liverpool's port. 2. Suggest how Liverpool 2 could reduce the North-South divide. Many possible ideas here, but hopefully you said that since Liverpool is in the north of the UK, doubling the capacity of Liverpool's port would create jobs, increase investment and business, and therefore improve the incomes and overall development of the northern parts of the UK. 3. Explain why business investment is higher in the south of the UK than the north. The economy is a post-industrial one based on the tertiary and quaternary sectors. Therefore, businesses invest where there are people with the skills to complete the jobs in those sectors. They also invest where the infrastructure is adequate to be able to be profitable in these sectors, notably transport and the internet. Such things are generally better in the south of the UK than the north. That's why businesses predominantly, which means mainly, invest in the south, for example in London and Bristol. In this lesson I'm going to show you how we can reverse this issue. How we can turn it round so that the north starts to gain and catch up on the south. One of the most well-known projects to do this is called the Northern Powerhouse Project. I'm going to show you what it is and how it works, and then we'll ask this important question. Is it working? So, how could investment reduce the North-South divide? This is called the Northern Powerhouse Project, and let me show you the basic understanding of how it works. The government will invest in education in cities in the north. Education underpins investment and access to high-skilled jobs anywhere. In cities in the UK, the most educated people get the best jobs, and cities with many educated people attract businesses. Therefore, the government is going to invest significantly in education. It's going to increase funding per student in schools and funding for universities. For example, Manchester University has recently received funding to build 2 new research buildings in the science sector. One of them is going to improve Manchester's engineering department so more people can work in manufacturing jobs once they leave university. And another one is going to educate people in maths, which means they can again access high-skilled jobs. So education is an important part of the Northern Powerhouse Project. As you know, people are on average less educated in the north than the south. Increasing funding for schools and universities will reduce some of this problem. Additionally, having educated people alone will not be enough to draw businesses away from the south or to attract businesses from other countries. To do that, you have to give them an incentive, which means a reason to want to. And companies are driven by profits. They want that above all else. So you have to give them a way, especially at the start, to increase their profits. How's the government going to do that? Through something called business incentives. And one of the most important business incentives is called a business tax rate. The taxes that we pay to the government, both people and businesses, affect the profits of businesses. So business incentive on taxes would be to reduce the business tax rate. Part of the Northern Powerhouse Project is to promote tax cuts for businesses so that businesses, when they set up in the north, pay less. As a result, their profits rise. This attracts them to the north. Second business incentive is called a subsidy. This is extra money given by the government for a business so that when it starts the company and doesn't yet have significant revenues, that extra money, the subsidy from the government, will help it to, for example, make more modern factories, buy the best equipment, train its workers. Both of these business incentives attract businesses to a place. So the government, through the Northern Powerhouse Project, is trying to do that in cities in the north of the UK. Additionally, infrastructure is key. As I've shown you in the context of Outer Hebrides versus Cambridgeshire, one of the big differences between places and where people move is the quality of the infrastructure. The internet is something that the Northern Powerhouse Project is focused on. Fibre optic cables, which are the latest form of internet transportation, are the fastest form of internet, and they provide the best internet service. The government is investing in fibre optic internet in the north of the UK so that the internet speeds are faster, which will allow businesses to communicate more effectively, share information more easily, and therefore be more profitable. This is especially true for technology companies and companies in the tertiary sector, which, again, as you know, makes up most of the UK's economy. So infrastructure investment is also a big part of the Northern Powerhouse Project. Second type of infrastructure is physical infrastructure, for example, ports and transportation networks. In previous lessons, we've discussed the importance of transportation. The government is not only focusing on Liverpool 2, but also, as you know, High Speed 2 to go to the north, and fast trains between cities in the north. So infrastructure, on top of education and business incentives, will attract more businesses to the north and therefore have positive effects. Let me show you. The main one is the multiplier effect. All economic growth happens because of the multiplier effect, and economic growth causes the multiplier effect. Better internet means more tertiary sector companies, which means higher incomes for people, which means people can spend more money on products, for example, from Amazon or in shops. And so those shops on the high street make more revenue. And when they make more revenue, they give more taxes to the government, and therefore the government has more money to invest in further infrastructure and education. That is the multiplier effect, when one piece of spending leads to much greater spending and more money. The Northern Powerhouse Project is about combining these three ingredients to create this in the north, with the goal that the development of the north catches up to the development of the south. Let me give you an example of a place that is experiencing the Northern Powerhouse Project. It's called Lancashire. It's a county in the northwest of England. Here is the north-south divide line, and as you can see, Lancashire is clearly in the north. It is in many ways one of the UK's poorest counties. GDP per capita is lower than the south, life expectancy is one of the lowest, average unemployment rates are high, and so as a result, it is in need of assistance. And so, part of the Northern Powerhouse Project is the creation of these things called enterprise zones. An enterprise zone is quite similar to a science park or a business park, but the key difference is that an enterprise zone involves the active help of the government to make it happen. So, let me give you an example. In Lancashire, an enterprise zone has been created in which the government has reduced business taxes and has invested in infrastructure, the internet and road networks, to connect up this small area to the best infrastructure. Additionally, the enterprise zone has been given extra funding to support people who get their first jobs there, which means it's more attractive for high-skilled people. An enterprise zone is very similar to a business cluster because it is lots of businesses in a small location working together. One example is the Wharton Enterprise Zone in Lancashire. One of the main companies is called BAE Systems, which makes many of the weapons in the United Kingdom military. For example, the Eurofighter Typhoon, this plane in the Royal Air Force. Such businesses require many high-skilled workers. BAE Systems will invest in a place where these workers are available and where transportation is excellent and the internet is excellent. They will also invest in a place where business taxes are lower and they are given subsidies, which makes sure that they are profitable. Wharton Enterprise Zone is a small group of buildings of which BAE Systems makes up one of the companies there that has been provided with government support to help it be profitable. It's just one example, and the Lancashire Enterprise Zones are numerous. There are many enterprise zones like the Wharton Enterprise Zone, which has BAE Systems in Lancashire. And these enterprise zones are attracting businesses because if they set up in them, they will be more profitable, as BAE Systems has discovered. Watch this video to understand about the Lancashire Enterprise Zones better. So the big question is this. This Northern Powerhouse Project, of which the Lancashire Enterprise Zones are one example of how it's being put into action, will it actually help to reduce the north-south divide? Well, the key question that needs to be answered is this. For the north-south divide to be reduced, development in the north needs to be faster than in the south. Unemployment needs to be lower, incomes need to rise faster, spending on healthcare and education need to be faster. So is that happening right now? Well, currently, the government continues to invest more in education and infrastructure in the south, despite the Northern Powerhouse Project, which was begun in 2010. For instance, one of the biggest infrastructure projects in the UK by cost, Crossrail, which we discussed in a previous lesson, is in and around London. Education. Some of the most well-funded state schools in the UK are in London and continue to be. Therefore, despite the Northern Powerhouse Project's efforts to increase development in the north, most of the government's funding continues to be in the south. As a result, this divide between north and south is unlikely to be reduced unless the government begins to invest more in the north than in the south. One example of how they could do this effectively is through improving infrastructure networks between the major cities of the north. If you're travelling between cities in the south of England, it is very easy. The M40, for example, between London and Oxford means travelling times are about 50 minutes. There are fast train networks between London and the southeast of England, between London and Bristol. However, between the cities of the north, train networks and road networks are much slower. Congestion on roads is often very high as a result of the lack of roads, and the trains are slow and expensive. So, one very effective project that could overcome this big difference is investment in infrastructure, especially railways between the cities. In the High Speed 2 lesson, I discussed how critics of High Speed 2 say that it would be better to spend the money on connecting the cities of the north than connecting the north to the south. Because when cities are connected by better transport, the businesses are more profitable because people can move between them more easily and goods can be transported between them more easily. So it's better to focus on these cities in the north, they say, than to focus on connecting London to the north, which would only make London richer. So, now you understand this solution to the north-south divide. Watch these 2 videos to help you understand it more deeply. Right, time to assess your learning. Take a whiteboard or a pen and paper and answer some questions. I'm going to ask them and then we'll discuss the answers. So number 1. Give me 2 effects of the north-south divide, 2 ways it shows up on people and their lives. So you could have said incomes are on average higher in the south of the UK than the north. You could have said that life expectancy is higher in the south than the north. That unemployment rates are lower in the south than in the north, more people have jobs. You could have said that house prices and quality of housing is higher in the south than in the north because people have higher incomes and demand for houses is higher in the south. You could have said that infrastructure is better in the south than in the north. For example, faster internet speeds, faster railways. You may have also said that people are more likely to suffer from health problems such as lung cancer in the north than in the south. So all of these ways show the north-south divide. Question 2. Is taxes and subsidies alone in the north unlikely to attract businesses, for example, businesses in high-tech companies, to the north? Why are they alone unlikely to have that effect? Well, you could have said a number of things, but the main one is this. Although business incentives are one important reason why businesses move to a place, they need, above all, the employees to be able to run those businesses and make them profitable. Without skilled employees, which comes from quality education, that will be impossible. Therefore, if the government's Northern Powerhouse Project wants to be successful, it cannot simply provide businesses with easier ways to make profit, it must also provide them with skilled people through education. Question 3. What is Wharton Enterprise Zone and what's the difference between it and, for example, a science or a business park? Wharton Enterprise Zone is a cluster of high-tech and manufacturing companies, for example BAE Systems, in Lancashire, northwest UK. One of the main differences between it and, for example, a science park is that it has received direct help from the government to attract businesses. In an enterprise zone like Wharton, business taxes are lower and subsidies are provided. This attracts businesses by reducing their costs and therefore increasing their profits. Whereas science and business parks, they develop independent of the government. In a science and business park, business taxes aren't lower and they aren't given subsidies. The companies are profitable simply by the fact that they are collaborating. Okay, time to embed your learning. Please answer these questions from memory and then mark your answers afterwards. What is a government subsidy? It's money given by a government to a business to support its income. 2. Outline 2 ways that government investment could attract businesses to an area. So 2 full explanations. Either this, public services, for example, or infrastructure. Make sure you've got these 2 points and explain them properly. Explain why reducing regional differences in the UK faces challenges. Government still invests more in the south. More investment needed in the north than the south. Finally, businesses seek profit above all. And today, London and the southeast is still the most profitable region. A company like Google, high-tech company, would still choose to invest in London over, say, Sheffield, because there are more high-skilled people and infrastructure is better. That needs to change if the north-south divide is going to be reduced. Okay, from today's lesson, write 2 questions from memory and answer them. and then test yourselves on those questions in a week. Thank you so much for joining me for these 2 lessons on the North-South divide. I hope you've left this lesson feeling that you understand that it can be reduced. In the final 2 lessons on the UK's economy, we are going to explore in more depth the UK's relationships with the world. Although a small country of just 66 million people, the United Kingdom remains a very important one. I'm going to show you how. Join me then.